There is a moment most people recognize, even if they can't name it. A conversation ends and something feels wrong. Not because of what was said, but because of what happened underneath it. You walk away smaller, confused, slightly outmaneuvered. And you can't quite explain why. This is the first clue that a game was being played, and you didn't know you were in it. Human interaction has always operated on two levels. There's the surface, words, tone, body language, the visible transaction of a conversation. And beneath it, there is a second layer, one built from unspoken intentions, hidden agendas, and quiet bids for control. Most people live entirely on the surface, reacting to what is said while remaining blind to what is actually happening. The people who understand both layers hold a permanent advantage, not because they are smarter, but because they are seeing a fuller picture. These hidden dynamics are what we call invisible games, recurring patterns of subtle manipulation and social maneuvering that operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. They are not always malicious. Often, the person playing them isn't fully aware they're doing it either. But the effect is the same. Influence gained, boundaries eroded, power quietly redistributed, all without a single overt move. Consider 4 of the most common patterns. The first is the guilt trip, obligation weaponized as control. It doesn't announce itself as manipulation. It arrives disguised as concern, as sacrifice, as love. After everything I've done for you, the mechanism is simple. It exploits your own conscience, turning your sense of decency into a lever someone else can pull. The second is the moving goalpost. This is the game of impossible standards, where no matter what you achieve, the bar quietly shifts higher. It keeps a person locked in a perpetual state of almost enough, chasing approval that was never designed to be reached. Its power lies in exhaustion. A tired mind stops questioning the rules of the game and simply keeps playing. The third is the false ally, someone who performs support while working, consciously or not, against your interests. They agree with you in the room and undercut you outside it. This game thrives on trust, because trust is precisely what disables scrutiny. You don't watch for betrayal from someone who has positioned themselves as being on your side. The fourth is withdrawal as control, the silent treatment, the emotional distance, the sudden cold shoulder. This is not the absence of communication. It is communication. It says, your access to me is conditional, and I control the terms. It works because human beings are wired for connection, and the threat of losing it can quietly override our own judgment. What ties these 4 patterns together is not cruelty. It's leverage. Each one exploits something fundamentally human. Our conscience, our desire for approval, our capacity for trust, our need for connection. These are not weaknesses to be ashamed of. They are the very qualities that make us capable of relationship, cooperation, and love. The games simply turn those qualities against us. And here's the turning point. The moment this entire pattern begins to lose its power, awareness. The instant you can name a dynamic. This is a guilt trip. This is a moving goalpost. Something shifts. The game requires your unconscious participation to function. The moment you see it clearly, you are no longer merely a piece being moved on someone else's board. You become a participant with perspective, someone capable of choice rather than automatic reaction. This is not about becoming cynical or distrustful of everyone around you. It is about upgrading your perception, learning to read the second layer of human interaction, so you are never again blindsided by it. Because the first rule of any invisible game is this: it only stays invisible until someone learns to see it. Seeing the game is only the beginning. The real transformation happens in what you do next, because awareness without action is just a more sophisticated form of standing still. Here is the shift that changes everything. Once you can name a dynamic, you stop reacting and start choosing. Reaction is automatic. It belongs to the game. Choice is deliberate. It belongs to you. This distinction is the entire difference between someone who gets played and someone who simply observes the play unfolding. So how does this look in practice? The first tool is naming the dynamic out loud, not as an accusation, but as a quiet act of clarity. It feels like the goalposts keep moving here, or I notice this conversation only happens when something is needed from me. You are not attacking the other person. You are removing the fog that the game depends on. Manipulation requires shadow. The moment you switch on the light, even gently, the dynamic changes shape, because it can no longer hide behind ambiguity. The second tool is boundary setting without emotional escalation. Most people think boundaries require confrontation. They don't. A boundary stated calmly is far harder to argue with than one shouted in anger. "I'm not able to take this on right now," closes a door quietly and firmly, without inviting a debate about your worth or your loyalty. The person who stays calm keeps the advantage. The person who escalates hands their power to the very feeling they're trying to control. The third tool is detachment, not coldness, but the refusal to let your self-worth hinge on the outcome of someone else's game. This is where most people lose, not because they lack intelligence, but because they care about winning a contest they never should have entered. The moment your identity stops depending on someone else's approval, guilt trips lose their leverage, and moving goalposts lose their power to exhaust you. You can walk away from a rigged game entirely unaffected because you were never actually playing for what they thought you were playing for. And the fourth, the deepest tool of all, choosing integrity over the small, short-term social win. It is tempting, once you understand these games, to start playing them yourself, to outmanipulate the manipulator. But this is the trap disguised as triumph. The goal was never to become fluent in games. The goal was to become someone who no longer needs them, someone whose word, presence, and boundaries are steady enough that manipulation simply finds no foothold. Think of it like chess against checkers. Checkers is reactive, a straight-line battle, move for move, emotion for emotion. Chess is different. It requires you to see several moves ahead while never losing sight of your own principles. The invisible games people play are checkers. What you are building, awareness, composure, self-possession, is chess. And a chess player does not need to cheat to win. They simply see more of the board. This is the real prize hiding behind every one of these hidden dynamics. Not social victory, but psychological sovereignty. The ability to walk through relationships, workplaces, and rooms full of unspoken agendas while remaining anchored to your own compass, unmoved by guilt that isn't yours, standards that were never fair, loyalty that was never real, and silence used as a leash. The people who master this don't become suspicious of everyone around them. They become impossible to quietly move. And that, more than any single tactic, is what separates those who get played from those who simply choose not to be. So here is the question worth sitting with, long after this video ends. Of the 4 games we named today, the guilt trip, the moving goalpost, the false ally, the silent withdrawal, which one has quietly shaped your decisions the most? And are you ready to stop playing it?